started with the cottage house. He bought
Oh.
he bought 40 acres. It was flat as a pool table.
No trees?
Nothing. He planted 3,000 trees and bushes himself.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
And they built the cottage house first, and then they built this house.
So we're older than you.
They were in
Yeah. I didn't know that.
the, they were in the cottage house while this was being built.
Oh, man.
And then they were here. I don't know how many years they were here. I don't know what year he bought the property, but as I'm sitting here, started to think about this, it had to be a long time ago.
So our deed shows that this house was built in the early 30s. Is that not true?
That's be very possible.
Okay.
Because if I was born in 51, they'd already been here for a while. So sure.
Okay.
Sure. So he built the cottage house first, and then they built this house. And then once this house was built, and they had that house too, you know, we used to just get in the car and drive straight across the grass over there because there was nothing, you know, back then
Wow.
it was all wide open. Everything around us was wide open.
So they moved in here. Who lived there?
Well, at that point, it went through, they never sold it. They only either rented it or they just let people stay there. Somebody that needed a place to live.
Oh,
I know
wow.
in my time, I remember my uncle got married here, and they lived there for a while. And then, I can't remember what number of marriage that was, but it was, I got 5 choices. And then, our,
Oh, well.
my grandmother,
Third time's a consistent.
my grandmother founded St. Christopher's Church on Main Street over, you know, just down the way. And the pastor of that church needed a place, so he was in that house for a while. Some teachers from Carmel High School were in that house.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people, you know, were in and out of it. And, but they, you know, we always had the 40 acres. And my brothers and I, and the yard man, we were either behind the lawnmower or on a tractor all the time. That's what it took.
So you owned, okay, so the back corner of your property was the back corner of our property,
Right.
and then you owned all the way out to 161st.
Yeah, we owned even behind this house over here, behind it, we sold it, my dad sold that land to the guy who, is right on 161st Street, all the way to the corner, went from the corner to the driveway where, what's her name lives, it'll come to me in a second, the next driveway up on 161st. The
Oh,
next
Judy?
What's that? I don't know who's there now,
Oh, she has the dogs?
she had horses back then,
Okay.
Oh.
She has one horse still.
yeah.
So how far back did you go back here?
All to the corner back there and not too far past into the woods.
Okay.
You know,
Like
you
in
got
the back of our-
Beauchamp's your back door neighbor.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to go through the fence and go see my buddy over there. We used to go back and forth through the fence.
So you knew the people that lived back, that house was already there?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
But there was no
That's a-
house
that's a
back
big
there?
house.
There wasn't anything back behind?
Yeah, there
you?
was on the other side of the fence, there was
Waters?
a guy had 6, I can't remember what his name was when we were here. His daughter and I were good buddies, we went to school together, and we played together all the time.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you just had Steele's on the corner, that old farmhouse, and they owned all that land all the way north to,
Is that Miss
Is that Vicky's house?
That was the
Is
yellow
Vicky's house?
farm?
The yellow,
farmhouse.
that yellow farmhouse?
Okay.
Okay.
yeah. And so he, then they, I don't know, well, my grandparents had to be here 30 years,
Wow.
and there was somebody, they woke up one morning when we were down on Central, and they found a body on the sidewalk not far from the house, and my grandmother told my dad, you need to get out of the city. The city's getting rough. And
Wow.
so they made a deal for him to come up. Yeah, I think he bought the whole place for 100. I think he bought that 2
All
houses,
the
and I
property.
think he bought the 2 houses and all 40 acres for 100 grand.
Hmm.
And then they remodeled it, and we lost my mother to cancer. He lost his eldest son, in Vietnam, and he was by himself. We were all gone, and it was just time for him to do something different. So that's how he got out of here. But that's when the inn got converted from a garage to the bedrooms for us. And then, like I say, the utility thing got all screwed up, because back in the day, everybody just did handshakes. The gas company needed to cross the property.
Oh, man.
And my grandfather, who was Jewish, he says, you can come across, but you gotta hook me up and it's gonna be free. He says, you got one free patron on your line. And that went on for years. And then, as it turned, people started to figure out, what the hell is this?
It was 1980 something
Oh,
when
it's a-
we got that
It
phone
took a
call.
long time for him to catch it.
Well, do you want to hear the story how that ceased to be. When we moved in here mid-90s, we only had one phone line, and I was running a business out of the house, so I needed some more phone lines. So we had the phone company buried a line all the way back. Well, they snagged the gas line right in front of the cottage.
Right in front of the cottage.
And since it was their fault, I mean, it's just blowing gas out. It's because it hit the big main line that runs across the corner of the
Right.
property. Our meter was on that. There was a frame out at the road, and our meter was out there, and we didn't pay Westfield Gas. They had to contract. Westfield Gas didn't. Nobody sold gas in here, but the power company, the gas company couldn't sell to us because anyway, they brought the pipeline company back and they said we'll fix it because it was our fault, but we're going to put it in your records that we told you not to replace it because it runs right into your neighbor's bedroom. when their house blows up.
That's what John and Sharon were there, and we were like, ooh.
So that's when we went to LP, and now we're on. We have geothermal.
Right.
So we don't.
Do we
We
still
don't
have
have
gas
natural
under
gas.
our
Yeah, is there gas under your window?
Time out. I need some more information.
You want free gas.
I'm still sleeping there.
So
I'm into that.
So
the
that's all
cottage
packed
house,
off. It doesn't
Everything's
exist
gone.
anymore.
Nothing's there.
Thanks, appreciate it.
We took care of
I
it.
don't, when we came out, my grandmother remodeled, my grandfather was gone. So she remodeled the cottage house again for herself. And, you know, I was in there all the time. And even as a kid, I'd walk around and I'd go, well, who the hell came up with this for? And then over the time, and you'll know better than I, the
should go
British
see it.
couple that lived there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I happened to pop back here one day, drive up here,
Oh,
and they were outside. And I saw that they were doing a lot of construction, so I stopped and I told him who I was. And he says, if I remember right, he says, well, we're a bit of a mess here. He said, we started to do a remodeling, and it's just like you see on TV. Once they take up the floor or take the wall out, they look in and go, uh-oh. And he said it just kept coming. So he said, we finally just said to hell with it. We just when I went in, the floors were down to the joists. He had,
Yes.
he had taken it straight bare to the wall.
We just did the carriage house, we call it. I don't know if it was ever a garage.
What was that?
Yeah, I used to spend the night there with my buddy. We used to have overnights with my buddies
Was
from
it a
school.
garage?
It was it was a little bedroom. The garage was the brown barn and back.
Okay.
So it really was a bedroom then.
Yeah.
That's what it was built
Yeah,
for.
and a
So
bathroom,
we
too.
Just this year took it down to the studs, the carriage house, and the floor was sitting on a brick foundation, and
I wasn't
the
there.
floor was.
Wow, it was like camping when I was a kid. I mean, you went in there.
You said it was like
it was
camping
just,
when
it was,
Yeah.
it was just the next thing to being outside. But as you walked in the door, there was a bathroom on the left.
Yeah.
It's
Still there.
It's still there. It's
Still
been
is.
upgraded.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just got upgraded,
Yeah,
yes.
But my grandmother always parked in the carport, so that was there was
Yeah.
never a garage there.
Well, and the
See
septic
what I
used to,
tell you?
there were
Right.
told you.
There
they
was
had
no
a cistern and we had a
evidence. It was
cistern
framed
and
as a
everything
garage.
that
Yeah.
after the cistern went straight to the creek. But that's not the way it is anymore. But
No. Poop and
we
Pea
used,
Creek.
we used to find toilet paper.
Nicely called Poop and Pea Creek.
Well, I
when we
can't find
first
it in
moved
the yard,
here.
even like a year ago.
Oh,
And the guy in
no.
the yellow farmhouse on the corner, because I was in 4-H, used to come over with his tractor, and he plowed up behind the brown barn. He would plow up a pretty good size, piece of dirt for me, and because I didn't know any better, and I needed tomato plants, so my brother was told to take me. He was in high school, older. I was the youngest, so my mother says take him to Westfield so he can get what he needs. Gave me $5, whatever I needed, and I told my mom you can't see the garden until it's done. Once it's all in, I had radishes, I had corn, I had, potatoes, tomatoes, cucumber, whatever, beans.
Wow.
So I finally had it done. I come home and I tell my mom, I said, I'm all set, I'm ready to go. So we get in the car, drive across the grass, because that's how, and she pulls up, she gets out, and she stands there and she looks, and she said, what'd you do? She goes, tell me what you got here. And I said, well, that's radishes, that's carrots. And she goes, what's this? I said, those are tomatoes. She goes, all of them? I said, yeah. She goes, well, how many tomato plants do you have? I said, 30.
30. Oh my.
She goes, 30? I said, yeah, 30 tomato plants. She said, it's not good. She says, you won't be able to throw them at people fast. and boy, we had,
planted one.
and back then, you know, of course, you're surrounded by farmers, they're growing their own, I mean, they just rotted on the vine, I mean.
People stop answering your calls.
Yeah, exactly.
I
got tomato. And I had 2 rows of green beans, and she said, "Are those green beans?" I said, "They are." She goes, "Oh boy, oh boy." We had tomatoes and we had green beans.
How old were you then?
I was 11, 12.
Yeah, so our
awesome.
son is 9, and
Right.
he's been wanting to garden, so just.
So how much land do you have with that house?
It technically says an acre and a half on our.
But I don't think that's accurate. I think it's actually a little bit more than that.
Who did you buy this land? Where did everybody buy? Who did they buy their
We
land
bought it
from?
from the British couple you met.
Right. I'm trying to figure out where the 40 acres got diced
Yeah,
up.
well, then Sharon and then bought it from,
The Bulgars.
well, the Boulders, and then the,
He's wondering who split it up in the first place.
right, but I'm trying to trace it back, and then the Birminghams.
You wouldn't remember the Birminghams, would you, the Birmingham boys?
Really?
I didn't
Okay.
know that.
Okay.
Are you related to Rob and?
No, I don't know if I am, but I doubt it.
Okay. It was split off. Clarence Crane bought the land across the street and developed all of those houses as a neighborhood.
Right.
I don't know who he bought it from though, and I don't know when it happened.
Yeah, we
Right.
didn't, we don't know, we can't find any history on it.
We've been here 24 years. Kent and Bobby have been, well, Boyers next door have been here 29 years.
And they really wanted to be here tonight, but they had a funeral they had to attend, and they just felt, John
Yeah,
really
John's a
wanted
history buff for sure.
to. Oh man, he really was just bummed.
Okay, so we've heard, now some of this would have happened after you though, so maybe you don't know about it, but we had heard that somebody tried to put in a petting zoo.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, we've got some big water mains, big water, did you have, you didn't have an orchard back there or anything like that? That must have come after you.
The apple orchard was over.
The apple orchard was back here, and all we had out this window was a row of walnut trees, went all the way to the woods. About maybe
Oh,
six
really?
huge trees.
There was an
All
apple
walnut
orchard
trees.
then?
Huh.
Yeah,
Because we had apple trees behind
We
the
did have a
barn.
bunch of apple trees over
Yeah,
there
'cause
when
I
we
always
came.
thought, I always wanted to have a house. The apple orchard, it was like a kidney almost. Well,
Yes.
yeah, it was like a kidney, and I wanted to have a house on top of the kidney. That's where I wanted to have one day, and I was gonna leave the orchard, the apple orchard where it was. And, things unraveled for my dad when I was in college, so, I was still pretty young, so.
So you would have liked to have bought the property?
Oh, I would've, it's a shame that this isn't the way it was. Can you imagine what it'd be worth today?
Oh,
if it-
man.
Does it look like a golf course at 40 acres up here?
Well,
In the Corvette Club, we got a guy that owns 30 acres on Main Street, just east of Keystone. And you go down the hill and come up, and there's a street, and you go all the way back. And he's owned it since like 1956. And he's got 3 houses on it, because kids are there. It's an amazing place. And
Wow.
he consistently turns down between $3 and $3.5 million if he opens his mailbox.
Well, you know who's got, the Acorn Farm, right?
Right,
'Cause they've got
I went to
40
Acorn Farm.
Okay,
right.
I figured you probably did. They've got 40 acres. And
Right.
I've heard that they deeded it over in their will to the city as a park.
They have.
That's an amazing piece of property back
It's
there.
beautiful
beautiful.
back
That was
there.
fun. That was a great place to be.
You went to camp there.
And some of those
Oh.
buildings are still there.
What's that?
Some of those buildings are still there. I don't know if you've been back there
No,
recently.
I haven't been back there in a
You
long
should
time.
go back in there, they are there. They've
It
got
the
a,
wasn't a
sweet
Boy
zone.
Scout camp, was it?
No, it was
Just
just
a
a day
regular old
camp.
camp.
oh, really?
camp.
Just a
Yeah.
day
The
camp?
dining.
Hell, they had a zip line back then, over the creek and through the woods. And they had a big building screened-in building where we ate lunch.
Was this all dirt road right out back here?
And,
Trying to think what was
it
dirt.
was, I don't know what the material would be. The driveway was the same way. They used to oil the roads. We didn't oil the driveway.
They call that chip, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was, it would get pretty dusty in the summertime.
I don't know if you know Mick Mead. He's the owner. Well, his wife is the owner. His wife is the daughter of the people that had Acorn Farm. She's probably 90, isn't she? She's really old.
Nick is she that much?
Well, I mean,
older
she's
than
in her 80s. But anyway, she goes clear back to her
Right.
parents ran the camp,
Right.
and then he married her.
When I went to Acorn, it was George Sweet and his wife, and I can't remember her name.
Okay, I think that was her.
Maiden
must be
name.
her maiden name.
Yeah.
Her parents or her grandparents.
I
Yeah.
think it was her parents, because she's in her 80s at
Right.
least.
Yeah, she is. They're 80s, but
So what's the story of the 500?
Well,
Yeah.
I should have brought the ring with me. So, well, as a matter of fact, this house, the story with the 500, the story with the family business, the way this happened, this is a riot. So my uncle migrates from Vienna through Ellis Island, my grandfather rather. I'm Episcopalian. He was Jewish. My grandmother was a Heinz 57. She was everything. She, on Sunday, no matter where she was in the world, she went to church. She didn't care what it was. She went somewhere.
It's kinda cool.
So he goes Ellis Island. He's in New York, so he's an apprentice in a belt factory, and he gets his girlfriend. He gets a girl. I don't know if his girlfriend, but gets her pregnant. So he does what any other upright, outstanding young man would do. He went to the train station with all the money he had in the world. He bought a one-way train ticket, and it dropped him here.
Anywhere, huh?
It dropped him here, and then he went to work as an apprentice in a jewelry factory. And he's sitting. I don't know if he was sitting next to Herf or if he was sitting next to Jones, but he was sitting next to one of them. And that person said, I'm going to start my own manufacturing business. You want to invest? Now, story goes that he gave either Mr. Herf or Mr. Jones, back in that day, 10 grand. That was his investment. And the rest is history. It's a multi-billion-dollar company today, and he made a fortune off of that. Then he went and opened his own manufacturing business, jewelry business downtown. And my dad and my uncle worked for him. And I don't know how many years that went, but my grandfather, I think they had taken it over before my grandfather died, because I don't ever remember my dad and my uncle not being in the jewelry business.
Okay.
So they were partners for God knows how long, and then my uncle decided he'd had enough, so he broke away and he opened up the Broad Ripple Trophy Center.
Oh,
And
that
at
was
the
your
end of the
uncle,
day,
okay.
he owned half of Broad Ripple, and my cousin got that business. And they sold that to Brothers, and they own a building out on Zions Hill Road now,
Okay.
86th Street by
Because I
Zion.
went over there and tried to talk to the guy, and he wasn't interested.
Yeah,
He wouldn't come out of the back room.
yeah, that would be Tom probably, my
So that's your
cousin.
cousin?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So then
Well, those
Dad,
kids really run
Dad
it
was you gotta remember back in the day, there was the communication. You either had a telephone, telegraph, or you had to tell somebody. You had to be standing there. And my dad was the Indy 500 was a big deal. And it's not so new. I mean, it's not so old there, but we're back right when it started. Well, they were racing fans, my uncle and my dad, and they got to be very close friends with Tony Holman. So after one of the races, Tony and Wilbur Shaw, my dad and my uncle are having a beer or having a lunch, and Wilbur Shaw says, Tony, he says, these guys are in the jewelry business. You ought to have them make a ring for the winner of the race. So my uncle had artistic ability, so he drew a picture of a ring, and I actually have one. I didn't think to bring it. And it's a checkered flag ring, and we gave that ring away for, I don't know, 60, 70 years, whatever it was.
To the winner.
I still make it on occasion. And up until the 1988, every driver that ever won that race wore that ring.
Wow.
And then it got commercialized because old Herb Jones came back into the picture, and they were doing a lot of business with the Speedway and the Holmans. But nothing gets sold in that Speedway that they don't have a piece of. Either they own the company or they own you, but one way or another, that's how that works. And my dad was partners with Tony Holman, and we shared a retail spot under the Tower Terrace as you're walking along there with Kodak. So we had one half of it for all the jewelry business. We were selling, car pin, charms and stopwatches and all the racing jewelry, and Kodak was selling film. And back then, that's what they used. They used film. So that our place was packed all the time. And I can't remember what year that ended, but I remember as a kid, all the way up to high school when I went on Saturday morning, I don't know how many round trips I would make downtown to 309 North Illinois Street to the factory and have one of the guys come out and hand me another package of stuff to take back to the Speedway. We just rolled through the stuff. So from that, we've always been wholesale. We've never been retail. I make my living as a wholesale jeweler. I sell things to the retail jeweler. They mark it up, they sell it to you. I have the racing business. I have a manufacturing business. I have a private business where if you want something, you come straight to me, and we avoid all the nonsense. And I've been doing that for 44 years. And, but we used to have a racing party. It was the social event of the city, and it took place in this house. And the only people that got invited
Yeah, we did
were
hear.
the winners of the race and their wives and the car owners. So, can't tell you how many times Roger Penske's been in this building, you know, and all the rest of them. You go back through the day, and there would be 300 people here. And there'd be cars parked damn near all the way to the cottage.
So did you set up tents or what?
Yeah,
How
what
did you,
how did you
do that?
host that many people back here?
Oh, he had where the sliding doors were, we closed that off, and that's where the bartender was. And there was a massive humanity. It went all night long. It went all.
Was it all set up outside?
Oh yeah, no, we're outside. We're everywhere.
Tents and
You know,
stuff?
that's you get a
Did
lot
you
of people.
have tents?
We did not have tent. Never had a tent. Never had a tent. And my buddies and I in high school would park cars, and everybody knew about it. It was always in the newspaper. But we had. I mean, I go back in the day. You know, the younger people may not know, but you know, you'd have Parnelli Jones, Sam Hanks. You would have J.C. Agajanian, Roger Penske, Roger Ward. You know.
Unsers,
The Unsers.
Rutherfords.
Yeah, it's he was tight with all of them. All of them. I mean, they were buddies. They weren't casual friends. They were extremely tight.
Interesting.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
And one year
Is
they
this the
wanted
racing party now?
$10,000 in addition.
Well, that's what the commercialized. The Speedway decided. You know, we used to give the day after the race. We would have a party at the Westin or one of the hotels. My dad would do this with Rolex, and we would give the winner of the ring, the winner of the race, the ring, and Rolex would give him a Rolex present, a watch, a gold watch. And this went on for years. So then we started getting commercialized. So then Speedway comes out and says, you know what? We don't care if you give the driver a ballpoint pen, but you're going to have a check for $5,000 to go with it because they're not racing for ballpoint pens; they're racing for money. So you guys are the bank, so. You want to give them a baseball cap? Go ahead. Just make sure there's a check for $5,000 in it. Otherwise, we're not taking it. So Rolex says, you know what? Screw you. We're not giving you back then, $15,000 watch and a check to go with it. We're bigger than you are, so you're gonna have to get over that.
Yeah.
So my dad, I came into his office one day. We had in the paddock penthouse. If you're standing in the pits and you look up and you got 1 through I don't know what number boxes. But we were box 5, box 31. 31 is right behind the flag, the starting. We had 24 seats, first and second row at both ends, and then we had another 24 seats in JJ underneath, and that's because of Tony Holman and my dad's relationship. And I remember walking into my dad's office for lunch one day, and Al Unser Jr. and Johnny Rutherford are sitting in his office. Rutherford's got his cowboy boots up on his desk with his hands behind his head, and they're just chit-chatting. And I kind of walked in and I went, oh, okay. And there was a little buffet place, right? Carmel Drive, where the bank is now, right next to McDonald's in Carmel. That's where the office was, that first building. We were on the top floor. And there was, on the other side of it, there was a little restaurant. It was lunchtime. And Rutherford and Junior came up. They were the messengers from the Speedway to tell my father, if you have another party and give that ring away, you're going to lose all your tickets. They've had enough. We had the driver we had the first public appearance with the Indianapolis 500-mile winner, and we weren't even connected to the Speedway at that point. Herff Jones was given the quote-unquote official ring. They took it away from us, but they couldn't take my dad's friendships away. That went on 10 years before the Speedway finally said, we've had enough. So we go over to eat, and of course, I've known these guys since I was a kid. I just didn't know they were in town. So we're sitting in this. We go through the line to get our food at the restaurant. We sit down to eat. I'm oblivious. I'm sitting next to my dad, and Junior and Rutherford are across from me. Junior's on the end. And I noticed that people are walking by real slow. We're in Carmel, Indiana. What the hell's Al Unser Jr. and Johnny Rutherford doing? Carmel, Indiana. And I thought, boy, these people are weird. It never occurred to me why they were coming by. And then they started, interrupting lunch, and then both those guys were as gracious as they could be. They, they're eating with one hand and signing with the other. So, but yeah, that was the history out there. In the month of May, I was never home. We were out there the whole time, and everybody knew who we were, and we knew who everybody else was. But when they would come to town for May, they couldn't wait for this party. It was pretty.
But that
wild.
was after the race was over, you'd have the
Right.
party out here.
Well, actually, that was before the race. That was during the month of May and the festivities. I can't remember
Okay.
what it may, of course, back then, the Speedway ran till all 30 days of May.
Right.
It wasn't a part-time job, like, you know, you can thank Mr. Tony George for that. And, when they separated CART and IRL, the whole thing went down the river, so, you know, God knows what they just got paid for, but I'm sure it wasn't mine. So, yeah, we had some events out here,
Who knew, right?
yeah.
How did had we heard that in the past?
We had heard from somebody that,
Somehow we heard that there
somehow
used to
we
be big
knew
parties back here for
about the
500, but
500, yeah, somewhere
I didn't know if
somebody
it was
told us that.
This is like Paul Harvey that you just heard the
Trophy
rest.
room.
Yeah, we
But
heard
none of the
rest
buildings
story.
behind the garage were there. We had that 3-car garage, but none of the other buildings were back there.
Oh, you had the 3-car garage,
I don't know who built those along the way, but,
The barn was there.
yeah, the
I,
barn.
I heard that was
It
built,
was only like 10 years old when we moved
are
here.
those yours now?
the barn is ours.
Yeah, the barn's ours,
And
and there's a
there's-
chicken coop out there.
I don't know what that is. It's
So how
not
many
really-
acres do you have?
We
with
have
it?
4,
You have 4.
yeah. And I think everybody back here has less than that, so I don't think anybody has more than
She was
that.
gonna finish.
So there's, let's see, you guys,
2.5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus all the stuff out on 161st Street.
So did they seize part of the corner of it on Oak Road and 161st there where the utilities are? That wasn't there when I was,
Yeah, they,
right on the corner. Who owns that field?
Whoever moved from Salisbury's house.
yeah, Salisbury, I don't know if you know
Thompson's
the,
live there
landscape.
now.
the landscape, yeah, one of the brothers used to own that, but now their name is Thompson. But they, with all the stuff they've done, they've backed up the drainage. When they did the road, they've got water running into the property they can't get rid
Nice,
of.
Grandma.
But she was down.
They just put this neighborhood back in here just like 2
Right.
years ago.
That made me sick.
Oh, I know, us too. It's
If
nothing
Bow
like,
Shop
Yeah.
sells that, I'm gonna shoot myself.
Oh,
That's a hell of a piece of
It's
land.
already
It's for sale,
Is it?
yeah.
Is it?
Uh-huh.
yeah.
We were just back there, and
We
it
were
was
just
just, yeah,
talking.
it was just like so beautiful.
Oh, it's
Back there.
beautiful
So
place.
That
Always
creek
was.
back there.
So beautiful.
He was
Pretty.
Duncan. He was a doctor.
100,000, right?
I think he killed himself. I think he
One-car
committed suicide, if
garage.
I'm not
On
mistaken.
that property.
Yeah.
The people that owned it, what was their name?
Who-
Waters. And he was an
He was a-
ophthalmologist, I think,
yeah.
in Sheridan maybe.
I don't know how many acres. That's 40 acres too?
I think they had 30-some.
Yeah.
And
It
the
was a
story I
pretty
heard was they got in
was
trouble with
pretty.
the IRS somehow and he needed to
That can
sell
happen.
it.
Well, they never lived, I mean, since we lived here, no one's
It was
been
abandoned the
there.
whole time. They had
The
horses
last
back
time I
there.
was
Someone
in
was
there,
there when we
it
moved
was Bow
in.
Shop's antique business.
It still is.
Oh, yeah, he still has
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's
the
still
other
behind
land,
that.
that's
Yeah.
the
If
other
you know,
He's dwindling. He's not buying anymore.
He's
Oh, is
gotta
that-
be older, you know?
He's selling out.
Yeah,
he's
he's-
selling all of
He's
his
gotta be at that point.
product, and he's not buying anything else.
He
Well,
owns most of downtown Westfield, though.
do you know
Yeah.
Guy Marcusfeld? Because he grew up around here and their family's been here for a long time.
No.
He works
He's
for Photoshop.
probably in late 50s.
Yeah, definitely.
His dad's from Austria, I think. What's Kitty's last name? Because they've
Bolger.
been
No, yeah,
around. Did you
Bolger.
know any Bolgers?
No.
Bolgers.
Okay.
There were a
They're-
bunch of
they're
Bolgers.
both-
Yeah, she and Keith are brother and sister.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
You
Because
probably did, but
uh,
just forgot.
Guy is Beauchamp's right-hand man. I didn't know that
He
he
lives,
let
he
me
lives
go
like
on.
2 houses,
Yeah, he
like
said,
we can run through there.
the antique business will be
Sure, I
done
didn't
in
know
about
that.
2 to 3 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought Guy was, so what's Guy gonna do?
He was known to be a top shelf guy. With
Oh,
the-
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you?
He's up.
Nothing's inexpensive.
And neither
You
the minute.
remember on my house what was original? I mean,
It's a
can
baby.
you?
I remember.
I know you haven't been there in a long time.
I don't know that there's, I'd have to look at it again. I don't think there's been, since I was here, any additions. It just keeps getting refaced and resurfaced and this, and the inside got taken
No.
apart. What kind of shape was it? How long have you had it?
All our neighbors here.
How long have you been there?
We've been there 3 years.
And you bought it from the British couple?
Yeah, it was in bad shape.
When you bought it from them, it was in bad shape after
Yeah.
they took it.
They
I mean,
didn't- they
you could see
What
the.
was it like
couldn't.
originally?
They couldn't resolve the water. Nobody could resolve the water problem there.
When we
And
bought it, the
and-
crawl space was just dirt underneath.
Full of,
it.
Right.
house was full of mold and.
There's just a lot of water underneath.
so we fixed it.
It was probably my septic tank.
We
Yeah.
have
Well, that's encouraging. Gas pipe,
It's a weird
septic tank, you
neighborhood
guys are
back
doing well.
We have 4 kids. That's why everyone laughed when he said.
So how many square feet is that?
Like 22-ish. But I
How
don't
many
think,
square feet is this?
I don't think that includes
3.
the carriage house.
3.
Plus the
Plus the
basement.
basement.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah, they don't count the basement.
Yeah, I don't think the carriage house is included in 2,200. Although, I don't know. But I'm just trying to figure out, because I've been all through that house.
Well, I'm surprised it
You
was
should
in
have
bad
them
shape when
walk
you
through
got
it
it, 'cause I
and see
mean,
what they
they,
think of it.
I mean, considering how dramatically they took it apart.
They did.
I walked in and I could see dirt in the floor. I mean, he had the
Yeah.
floor. Do you see the
Yeah.
joists?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the problem though, is he didn't put any kind of
They did.
barrier between the dirt and everything else, and the water would fill that because it's kind of low. I don't know when the road got put in, but from the road, the whole front yard slopes to the house, and so there was no sump pumps down there, and so that crawl space.
I don't remember any water issues back when I was there.
Yeah.
When Wayne's house was built by, I don't know if you know this or not, I think the people that owned.
He was in the auto parts business, I think, right? And then Randy and Susie's house, the Tatum's house, was Gene built Shadeland Dodge.
Oh, is that right?
And they were best friends. According to Randy, they were best friends, and they built. That's why they kept their driveways set like together. Like that.
Brittany, your high school friend, whose dad,
Oh,
But he also owned a
Amanda
liquor store.
Williams.
no, the one that had her dad had an auto dealership up in
Robertson's.
Kokomo. Robertson.
Oh, Stephanie, yeah.
I think he had a Kokomo auto dealership,
Oh, he did too.
but I think his dad did. I think they built it.
They built their house?
Yeah,
I didn't know the Robertsons.
and then I think he grew up there.
Really?
And
Yeah,
in
I'd forgotten
the
about
bad,
that.
The bad economy in 08, 09, I think he lost that dealership. But then when we moved here 24 years ago, their name was
Montgomery's.
Buckingham, I think, or Montgomery.
Montgomery, Buckingham
They-
was in their
Buckingham
house.
was their house.
Rob Buckingham was in
Or no,
theirs.
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
There was a
Birmingham.
Buckingham Montgomery.
The liquor store?
The 21st century, or what, 21st Amendment. Yeah, they owned that. He was also involved with a lot of the community theater around here.
Yeah,
Big-
the
big
theater
guy.
they were involved in, yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah.
How long have Tatum's been there?
They've been
As long
there
as
ever
we've
since
been there.
we've been.
Yeah.
They're
Do you
the
know
best, by the
Tatum's?
way.
They're awesome.
They are
They are
awesome.
so awesome.
They live out on Oak Road, so they would have been the northeast corner of your
Right.
So I
property.
went to school with their
So
daughters.
that house
and-
always had that flat roof
yeah,
on the front.
when Kelsey was alive.
Over here?
My house.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
Always
adopted
had
them
that
and
flat
vice
roof on the
versa.
front.
What's that?
We've adopted
Are you
them
kidding me?
and vice versa.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, Amanda was just like a year older than me.
there, you know, the upper window on, like where you're, the
Bathroom?
back, yeah, that's not original. He raised that.
So you had to redo it again when you bought it?
No.
So the interesting thing, to be fair, the inside, what they were doing probably when you saw it, the inside looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
But what we found when we moved in was mold. So we did things that you can't see.
Can't say yeah.
Or did you know it had mold?
Underneath our house is now
Did
like
you
a
know it had mold when you bought it?
Oh
pool
yeah.
line there, yeah.
And snakes too.
That's
why they bought it.
That's a big black
I
snake.
had to
Couple
shoot
Oh,
like
we
6
had-
foot
We
black
had everything running through here. I mean, we had fox, we had everything
In the
running.
crawl
Yeah, we
space.
still see foxes.
We still have fox and possums and
Yeah,
raccoons
yeah.
and deer.
Lots of deer.
and-
We saw 8
and
deer.
we have an
this
owl.
Well, I was gonna say with
The
all the
owl
houses
out
built
there.
there, now all the deer are just in the
Yeah.
backyard.
Wayne, I know things haven't been completely pleasant for you. Are you glad to be here?
Absolutely.
Let's get the Tatums. Come on.
Tatum's and the
The,
Milligans.
the people that sold the house he didn't realize that they were pumping the septic on a regular basis so that nobody knew that it was failing. So when he moved in with his family, they had a failed septic system.
And we happened to call the same septic company, and they had pumped the system the day before we inspected the house. And all the old invoices happened to say, septic failed, call this company. And we ended up having to go to court. We tried to settle it, but they didn't want to, so we had to go to court. And
Did you win?
we did, but now it's at the appeals court, so,
Ah,
yeah. But yeah, we won the first time, so.
wow.
So tell me again, which one of your kids here?
Which one of our kids are
Yeah,
here?
yeah.